Hi, I'm Adam Price. This is Less Lessy Reviews. Today on Less Lessy Reviews, The Twilight Sad and their new 2012 album, No One Can Ever Know. The Twilight Sad are a band that started in Kilsyth, Scotland, and they've been doing their thing ever since 2003. They're a band that have gone through a lot of changes in terms of the way they sound. When they started, they were a band that was, I would say, just an indie rock band with, elements or at least influences in folk music. And they've moved towards a sound that's completely not that at all. They've gone from just night and day difference. On their new album, No One Can Ever Know, they've gone to a sound that's very post-punk with darkwave influences and a little bit of industrial thrown in with just to really presented a complete change in their music. No One Can Ever Know is a very good album. It is very consistent in terms of the way that it's laid out. It's not samey, but what it does is every song on it is very consistent and it progresses in a very natural way. One song leads into the next song, and you feel that sort of that change between the songs. And I found for this album the influences that they've sort of taken from post-punk and darkwave really worked on this album. In terms of sort of how it feels as an album, I think that the album is like someone sort of caught in the city and just people going by at like fast paces and slow paces. And it sort of reminds me of like that Koya and Kwatsi with the very like just distant feel, like really distant from the environment. And there's a definitely morose and sad feel to this album, which actually, if you go back and you look at their other albums, that's a technique that they've used on each of their albums. They are a sad band. They produce sad music. The Twilight Sad. I mean, it's in their name. And they do it well. So it definitely does work on this album. And with the new sound change, it's moved into a direction where I think it feels really industrial and it feels really distant. And that's really working. And it's lost sort of the intimacy that it was on their previous albums, and that loss of intimacy is actually good because it just feels different now. In terms of the way the vocals sound, they're really interesting. James Graham, he sort of sounds like Morrissey in a way. He really draws out the last line of a word in the songs. So he just really stretches them out and really makes them feel like there's a lot of emphasis on the last part of a sentence or the last word or whatever. And to me, that sounds a little bit like Morrissey because he used a similar technique. And musically, it's interesting because of the way that they've moved throughout their albums. On 14 Autumns and 15 Winters, their first album, I mean, like I said, it was folk influenced, but it was very much an indie rock album. And if you go to their new album, No One Can Ever Know, you've got an album that's has a lot of analog synth in it. They've actually stated in interviews that we used a lot of analog synth, which really gives way to that dark wave sound that I keep on talking about. They're really utilizing that sort of like industrial, almost like Bauhaus sounding feel, but still maintaining the rock, alt rock, post punk sort of feel as well. So they're actually trying a bunch of things really cleverly and really well in this album. In terms of the darkwave similarities, I mean, I think they sound really similar to a band called Pink Turns Blue out of Germany. And I'll provide a little sample of that in the description box because they're a great band. They're one of my favorite bands. So I think that what they've done on it is they've really sort of, I'm not sure if they've heard of it, but they've definitely taken influences from that movement. So I found the song Sick off of Twilight Sad, No One Can Ever Know sounds really similar to Pink Turns Blue, I Coldly Stare Out. And the way that they use that sort of similarities in like the drums are really similar. And just again, the way he sings is really similar. The drums on this album are really tight. Like they're really tight and they sound good. They're very crisp sounding. Again, they've got that sort of clever harshness that just works with the album. I think that overall, this album is a really strong album. There's elements that this is sort of partly my own bias, but there's elements in post-punk and there's elements in darkwave that they didn't utilize as well as they probably could have on this album. I think that there could have used like just toning down some of the noise on some of the tracks and just really allowing for a difference between harsh and quiet Because if you have an album that's all harsh, what you do is you sort of become immune to that harshness. I think that what they could have done on this album is really sort of move from like harsh to softer, and that is a thing that is a style and a technique that was used really, really well in the dark wave and post punk sounds. So although this album is really concrete and it moves in a naturally progressive way, there are some elements I think that they could have improved on. Overall, I mean, I really liked Another Bed. I really liked Nil and Sick. I thought those were great songs. Was not a fan of Don't Look at Me at All. I didn't think that was a very good tune personally. So 6.5 out of 10, I think. For those of you who are interested, I'm going to include the Twilight Sad's Twitter. So it's at the Twilight Sad, and that'll be in the description box as well. Thanks so much for watching my review. Like, comment, subscribe, and there'll be more to come.